Sara Carter is an artist who paints from intuition, not a plan. Her work is a kind of spiritual practice. After years in Houston and the Bay Area, she now creates in Austin, blending color, texture, and form to channel something greater: memory, emotion, and collective experience. Recurring shapes, circles, spirals, echo cycles of return, grounding her abstract pieces in both personal roots and cosmic rhythm. Her East Texas upbringing subtly infuses each piece, connecting place, family, and the unseen currents that shape us all. Please enjoy my time with Sara. Hey, y'all. Let's go there. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Carla.
Yeah, I am so excited. First of all, let me tell our audience, this is a bit of an experiment. Typically, my husband will take the dogs, but he's golfing today. So we have podcast dogs. They are drawn to you. They want to be around you.
I want them to be in here. I am drawn to them.
So this might be an experiment. I might have to get up mid-podcast to let them out, but we'll see how this works. Buddy, this is our newest addition. So we have Spalding, our red Labrador that we've had for 13 years almost. And Buddy is a rescue, and he has just joined our family and stolen all of our hearts, Spalding's included.
He's so cute.
Yeah, I think he has something to say. But okay, Sara. So
yes,
typically I begin the podcast by talking about how we know one another.
Okay.
And you are a new friend, someone that I'm not ashamed to say that I admire very much.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. And we are getting to know each other. And I want to talk a little bit about how we met.
Okay.
So the dogs brought us together. Well, Spalding did.
Yes.
We were in my kitchen, and I was hosting an event for the Contemporary Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw you petting my dog.
Well, I had a chip in my hand, he wanted it, and I wanted to give it to him, but I was like, I don't know if you're supposed to have this. And you happened to walk into the kitchen, and I said, "Can I give him this?" And you went, "Absolutely." And then we started talking.
Yeah,
yes.
And became fast friends.
Yes.
And then it was funny because I was talking to you, not realizing who you were, but I knew of you because I'd seen your house in a magazine.
Yes.
And actually one of the waitresses at the event said, "Oh, y'all don't know each other? Sara has the coolest house." And as soon as she said that, I don't know what happened. It clicked. I immediately knew who you were and that I had read about you in this amazing house and your amazing art. And we were off to the races after that.
We were.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, how would you describe yourself, Sara? When I tell people about you, I describe you as a phenomenally talented abstract artist. But if you were to describe yourself, how would you describe yourself?
Well, I wouldn't reject that description. Thank you so much. But I would say the way I would describe myself from the inside out is I've always been an artist. I consider
I mean, he's sitting in the chair.
Yes, I see that. I consider that it is a fundamental way in which I came into this lifetime to communicate any and everything is through art. And I've always known that it was what I call my superpower.
Mm-hmm.
I can very explicitly, vividly remember being even in preschool, knowing that in every way I was just an ordinary kid. Mm-hmm. But when it came time for art, it was just, I was everything. Mm. And there was a humbleness to it. It did not have hubris. I mean, how can you have that when you were in preschool? Mm-hmm. But I was very, very aware of this, this benevolent force coming through me. And it's pretty interesting that all throughout elementary school, I was always that kid that when it was time to do art, they would always say, "Well, look at hers," or "Will you help me?" Or mine was always put up on the, bulletin board. My first solo exhibition was in first grade. Wow. After doing an art project in the class. The teacher it was on the, newspaper print with tempera paints, and we were all learning how to paint like a flower bouquet type of thing. Of course, I went rogue. It was definitely flowers, but I went completely rogue with how I was doing it. I was not doing literally the set, and it was pretty amazing. And my teacher took it and showed it to the principal, and it was in her office above her desk for a year.
Wow.
Yes, so that was my first solo show.
And do you have any pieces from that time, Sarah? Have you saved
I still
anything?
have that piece.
Oh,
I
I'd
still
love
have
to
that
see it.
piece because I have it because when it was done in the office of the principal, my mother took it and had it framed, and it was over their bed for
Wow.
for many, many years. And now that both of my parents have passed away years ago, I have it, and it is in our family home in East Texas,
Oh my gosh.
in my room.
I love that so much.
Yes.
Sarah, it's so interesting to hear you talk about humility when you said I'm humble about it because somebody just made me aware of a concept in the Jewish faith in Judaism, and that is that humility is to take up your God given space in the world,
Hmm,
and
interesting.
because when we don't, it's actually because of ego because we're trying to
Yes.
protect ourselves
Yes.
from embarrassment or disappointment or whatnot. But the true humility is when you take up your space in the world and you channel whatever it is that you're meant to channel. So it's so funny that you described it as humble.
That is interesting. I did not know that, and the way you describe it is exact it matches how it is that I remember feeling in those days.
Wow.
Yes.
That's quite beautiful. Okay, so how did you get from this kid who is just clearly talented to actually professional artist? What was the path and where did you go from school?
I always knew that it would be what I would do in the world, and I
Mhm.
would say that it was in my late 20s that I said, "Okay, this is gonna be the thing that I do in the world." And I decided to go back to school. I went to the San Francisco Art Institute,
Mhm.
which is no longer in existence, sadly.
Mm.
And from there, I was very lucky. I was picked up by a gallery in San Francisco that was one of the Gehry galleries. I was
Mm.
there for 12 years until he retired. And then I sort of went off on my own trying to stab it out. And I had more lateral moves than any sort of vertical move. And then eventually found my way to meeting David DeBoer. He at the time was the director of Edward Cella Art and Architecture in LA. Um, so I showed with them for a
Mhm.
while, and then David went off on his own, and he now has the DeBoer Gallery in LA and in Antwerp, and I've been with him ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what gave you the courage to do that? What were you doing in your early 20s? Well, actually, let me ask you that question first. What were you doing in your early 20s? You said you finally kind of came into it in your late 20s and decided to go back to school for it. What was that moment and how
I
did you
was a
make
bit
that decision?
I was a bit bouncing around it, doing various and sundry things, and a lot of fits and starts and brick walls and whatnot. And I think that that's what led me to the idea I'm going to take the thing that I'm already doing anyway, that I always do,
Mm,
and put that into the mindset that this is professionally who it is that I am. If you're looking for professional identity, since I already have this and it is what funnels through my heart, I'm going to give it that label.
yeah.
And that changed the perspective of it.
Was it hard for you to do that?
Mm-mm.
It
Uh,
was just
n-
coming through you.
oh yeah. No, no, it was joyous, and it was like finally finding the right fit in the shoe. Where all the other shoes, they kind of fit. It's like, they kind of fit, and this one is to this, that one's to this. This, it just like boom, and I just went.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the reason I asked the question is because myself, like many of my closet creative friends, are struggle with it. and sometimes hide this part of ourselves because we feel like, well, we're not good enough to make a living at it, or we give ourselves lots of excuses. In fact, I was on the phone with a friend this week who is finally getting the courage to become a writer full time. And I have no doubt in my heart that she's going to be wildly successful. She's extremely talented, but she is being confronted with all the fears that come along with picking the path of an artist, the life
Mhm,
of an artist. And
mhm.
so I was just curious, you exhibit none of that fear.
I never had any of that.
Wow, that's so cool.
And I really never have even ever thought about it. It never occurred to me that no, I've never had that at all.
Wow, that's so cool. So 0 self-doubt, you knew it was your calling.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Now, self-doubt, if you want to try on that, I'll say that degradation, none of us should do that, but it
Yeah,
is part of the, the human experience. It is part of the thing that can be sort of our the rigorousness of a test, really. I have self-doubt at times that I'm going to be able to facilitate the work in the way in which it deserves to be seen, um, known about, spread. Um, I don't happen to be in that self-doubt right now. It's like in the last few years, I just think something has locked me into first gear and the mud flaps are down and here I go. And I don't even really know exactly what that means. It's not like I have a plan other than show up,
yeah,
be there. And if something you feel intimidated by something or afraid of something, certainly you can acknowledge it or note it, but you just go anyway. I have had a period in my life of where that type of fear would have stopped me dead in my tracks,
mm,
and I would still try to accomplish what I was trying to accomplish, but I would do it laterally or try to go a circuitous route that was not just, like, straight there. And I think at this particular age, there is something so freeing about being the age that I am. I'm not claiming that I'm ancient, but I'm also not in my 30s or my 40s anymore. And so the idea of what our culture says, the high wire act of being in your 30s and in your 40s, and you have to either do it right or don't do it.
yeah,
There's so much at stake. There's so far you can fall. We all are beset with that idea, and it's our choice to believe it or not believe it. So at this age, it's like it doesn't matter to me anymore. There's a luxury. It's like, whatever. No one's paying attention to me anyway, in that way anymore. It's not even something that I consider. Therefore, you just go.
yeah.
You just go. I mean, a friend of mine, I guess about a year ago, this is another catalyst to or it's a support for me just going. He had just gotten home from visiting, his parents in England, and he was telling me about this book that he read that is entitled, 4,000 Weeks.
Oh, I know this book. It
Yes.
killed me. It slayed
Yes.
me. Yeah,
Well, and it's like how many weeks is your average lifetime?
yeah,
If someone just asks you that and you don't think about it, you're like, "Well, certainly it's like, I don't know, 300,000 something?"
yeah,
When you calculate it, it's like, "Oh, no,
yeah.
it's 4,000." 4,000 of anything is not very much,
No.
and that's a lifetime. I've done some calculations of how many weeks I have left. It's 1,500
Oof.
ish, and that is if I live to be, like, 95.
Yeah,
1,500 weeks. It's like, on one hand, perhaps there are many people that would be intimidated by that or the starkness of that would be scary. For me, it's like, it is so loosey-goosey freeing. I'm
wow.
just like, does it matter that in my effort to organically show my real self, my true authentic self, that I don't know, trip or fall down or hair's out of place or use improper grammar or any of those things that would give our egos pause as
Mm.
we try to relate successfully to community.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that I don't go, "Oh god, I shouldn't have said that," or, "Oh, brother, that's embarrassing." I do, of course,
Yeah.
but it doesn't stop me
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, and the thing I wanna say to our audience, especially if they're not watching this video, you are stunning, woman, and I said it to you before when
Oh, thank you,
when we
Carla.
were getting ready for this, I asked you how old you were because I couldn't tell, and I was like, "You are ageless, and you are" forgive me for saying it, "you're
Go ahead.
hot."
Oh,
And so
thank
for
you,
me,
thank
that's
you.
aspirational, you know? It's like, I wanna be hot at your age, and I think it's, the part of that attraction is because you are so free and you are so yourself. And it's just that's give me some of that. I'll have what she's having, you know. And I think what I'm curious about is where did that come from? Because you mentioned there was a time where you wouldn't be that way, and where did that come from? Where did that freedom come from?
Well, that can be that story, I could string it out for a month, or I can give it a few sound bites. I will try to give it a few sound bites
Oh, I don't mind. Let's go there,
with the
Sarah.
same gravitas as if it were, spread out over a month. And I would say, without knowing in the moment what the components are, I would say looking back on it, I understand that it is the perfect the perfection in the imperfect
Mm,
that I have allowed to inform me. I am one of 6 siblings,
hmm
um, all pretty close in age and historically all very, very close in our sibling relationship. Squabbles and discord, of course, but at the end of the day, if somebody needed to be helicoptered out of somewhere, we would all be on it.
love that.
Um, I I am a recovering alcoholic.
I did not know this about you.
Yes, yes, I am, and I rarely ever use that terminology anymore because it's been 21 years since I have been sober.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and it was in 2004. I would say about in 2002 is when I kind of allowed myself to know, "Houston, I think we have a problem." But I thought, "Okay, I'm just gonna sit on this and I'm gonna watch myself. I am going to not stop myself, I'm going to assess
Mm,
and witness myself
mm,
as a way of really understanding what's going on here." Because the the behavior in my addiction was not obvious to other people at all.
mm.
It was obvious to me because I knew what was going on inside of here that was not, noticeable on the outside.
And
Um,
what was that, Sarah? What was
it
happening?
was it wasn't that I drank necessarily at inappropriate times.
Mhm,
It wasn't that I had huge consequences
mhm.
that people might have, but in the management of myself as a person in community, knowing that there's protocol being, I don't know, if you're at a polite dinner party that is not a, lampshade on your head type of dance party,
Mhm.
it's not cool to drink 5 or 6 glasses of wine,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
I didn't, but it wasn't because I didn't want to. I
Mhm.
would console myself that, inside I would say to myself, "It's okay. Just do as they're doing, 1 or 2 over the evening. When you get home, if you feel like opening a bottle of wine, you can do that." Now, I didn't ever really do that, maybe once or twice, but the fact that I had to use that as a way to manage not over serving myself in the moment.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow, that's fascinating.
so those types of and those are it's kind of a common thing.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't drink every day. I didn't like I said, I didn't drink all day long. I just knew that when I was drinking, it was almost like all bets are off. I'm just gonna, like, swim in this ocean
Mhm.
of Chardonnay, you know? And when I got to the place of where I was on the outside thinking I better start hiding it, is when I knew.
Mm.
So I made an appointment with an addiction MD, not knowing at all what that was gonna be. I thought I was just gonna go to, like, the doctor with a white coat on. That's not what he was. He was a doctor, um, but he was an addiction specialist, and he had a rehab that he was the director of.
Mhm.
So I had, for about 2 months, I had counseling sessions with him, and then I decided to do their outpatient program. I did outpatient rather than inpatient because I had a 6-year-old daughter at
Mhm.
home, and excuse me, I was not willing to be away from her at all. Um, so for 3 months, Monday through Thursday, from 4 to 9, I was in rehab, and it just
Wow.
changed everything. It changed everything, and by that, I can tell you that I realize now that the addiction and my experience with alcohol was a prophylactic film
Hmm.
on top of the rest of me that wanted to come out in authenticity.
Huh.
So it as an example, AA saves many, 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 many lives. It is an amazing organization for those that need that protocol.
Mhm.
I did it because it was required to do it. That's not how I ever stayed sober.
Mhm.
I didn't need that, and that's not to say that, oh, others do. That's not the way that's not the protocol that was assembled for me to stay sober in the same way that someone else's protocol is exactly group meetings and a sponsor
Yeah.
um, and like I said, it basically peeled back the fear layer of me, and it
Wow.
exposed the strength, the, uh, the gravitas of me as a human being, which includes my frailty and my faults and my fear, along with my thirst for life and the exuberance of just using my tools that I've come here to use in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so glad you shared this with me. I did not know this. It's so fascinating because it wasn't to hear you describe it, it doesn't present how we think alcoholism typically presents. And I think a lot of us have um, unhealthy relationships with alcohol and don't realize it. And somebody once said to me that addiction, and I don't know if this is true for you, but I'm curious if it is, that addiction is just the avoidance of a feeling. But that's all it is. We're trying to avoid a feeling.
I would say yes, absolutely, it is. That's not to discard and discredit a part of the machinery being one's own subjective biology
Mhm. True.
that can be, addicted to
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But it could also be said that it is your biology that is serving you in the idea that you don't want to know something.
Mhm.
So we can look at this in a very, I'm going to say, allopathic, Newtonian way and say, yes, there's the behavior, but separately there's the biology.
Mhm.
But when you discard that, linear, more, I'm gonna say prosaic way of looking at it and look at the whole thing, it's just all one thing. Everything is all one thing.
Yeah.
Everything is everything and nothing.
Yeah. Multiple things can be true at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yes and yes.
Yeah. Was there something that you were trying you mentioned that you were kinda holding back your true self and your authentic self. Was there something that you were avoiding as well? Like,
Probably. Yes, and I mean, again, that could be a month-long seminar, or it could be just a quick answer. I could easily give you sort of the boilerplate answer, which is absolutely true. 5th child among 6 siblings.
mhm.
Um, my mother had 6 kids in the span of 11 years,
Wow, holy
and
smokes.
by the time my younger sister and I came along, I think she was really exhausted.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I think there was not the same availability of her
Mhm.
as there was perhaps for the others.
Yeah.
And for me, the way I describe it, we adored our mother. She was amazing. And my dad too. But the way I describe my childhood in terms of that the safety and the attachment that all kids need to have.
Mhm.
Yes, I was attached to my parents, absolutely. But because I couldn't quite get from my mother, and I certainly wouldn't have known how to have articulated that or even known that, couldn't quite get what I really needed, me subjectively,
Mhm.
uh, being very I'm a very sensitive person.
Mhm.
Um, And I've always been when people are talking about, I don't know, the weather, I am saying, "Wow, that's interesting, but what about the universe and the quantum field?" And everybody's like, "What? What?" So there's always been that aspect of me, and since I couldn't attach to the the full security that I think any kid needs
Mm.
from my mother, I use, and I think my siblings are the same, I used the bevy of my siblings as the parent. It
Sure.
wasn't any one sibling that I leaned into and projected upon. It was, we're one for all and all for one. We are this
Mhm.
like this wad of enmeshed, amazing, squabbling, self-identifying with each other thing.
Mhm.
Um, and the good aspects of that are still alive today, and we all still marvel at that.
Mm.
Um, and we all have we're not enmeshed anymore. We all have our separate lives, and we might go months without chatting, but then when we do, it's just like boom.
Yeah.
So I would say, what was the question?
Was there something you were trying to avoid or not feel?
Yes, yes. I was trying to not feel that I was equating my mother's lack of attention to me that I didn't count or wasn't relevant or wasn't enough to hold her attention.
Mm. Yeah.
And so what that does for anyone is it sets up a paradigm with the idea that you wonder, should I look at the rest of life this way?
Mhm.
As in, this situation, this party, these people, this group of people, should I look to them to give me signals about whether I'm good enough
Mhm.
or or worthy of belonging? Um, so I would say that's what I did not get. Now, let's compound it with the fact that I am a classic dyslexic and was undiagnosed.
I didn't know this either.
Yes, and undiagnosed, and so and I think that was probably fairly common in the '60s,
Sure.
um, and so my brand of intelligence does not perform or show up or it's not mechanized in the same way that the typical, um, intelligence is thought of or measured in
Mhm.
in our culture. It's, like, I was terrible in school.
Mhm.
Even though I was really, really smart, it's like my brand of smart was not being asked to show up.
Yeah. By the way, your brand of smart is the most common brand of smart amongst CEOs. Did you know that?
I did not know that. However, I am aware of in the '90s and the early 2000s, there was sort of this wave of for CEOs, executive people hire the people with an MFA
Mhm.
because they know how to think.
Yep.
Because you don't need to know about, the other stuff. You're gonna find that out about that particular environment or that particular business or
Yeah.
that particular project or product.
Yeah.
But people need to know how to interact with the sentience of people along with the culture of people, along with the intelligence of people.
Totally. By the way, I talk a lot about it on this podcast, but I went to architecture school, and design thinking is absolutely what set me apart in the business world because I was learning it long before it was in fashion.
Uh-huh.
And so along the same lines of what you're saying around businesses seeking out MFAs, it was a huge advantage for me. I too am kind of an untraditional learner
Mhm.
and really struggled in school and had to really work hard at it. And always kind of felt like a bit of an outsider because of it. So I can really relate to what you're saying.
Yes.
Um, so how does all of this play out now? So you're on the well, actually, I want to ask a different question. I want to talk about how does this play out in you as a parent?
Oh, well, interesting. My daughter's also dyslexic.
Okay.
Now, I said I was undiagnosed. The reason I have been diagnosed is because she was presenting in kindergarten and first grade, in between kindergarten and first grade in the summer. Her teacher was saying, I think we should get her tested. And so I was like, oh, I'm on it. So we did. And she was off the charts with her IQ, but she
Mhm.
was down in the toilet with the other things that, are sort of quintessentially dyslexic.
Mhm.
When I then sent her well, then the doctor gave her the report and gave it to me, the parent. I was listening to him, and silently I was going, "Well, that's me. Well, I do that. Well, oh my god, I think that." And so I was like, "Holy crap."
Yeah, of course.
I am dyslexic. So I went and got myself tested, not by this person, but by someone else. Classic dyslexic. I was so happy and joyous and relieved
Yeah.
to find this out because it really did underscore the places of where I do feel sort of like this dimensional exponential way that I can see things that maybe other people may not as a contribution to how things can be seen. It's true, and
Yeah.
that's sort of like the anatomy of how it is that I was flung onto the earth.
Totally. Yeah,
Yes.
it's what makes you you. I had a similar experience, although I didn't go get diagnosed, but my son was diagnosed with ADHD. And when they were questioning him on certain things, they were like, "Does this remind you of anyone in your family?" And he was like, "My mom." He didn't hesitate for 1 second. And yeah, I ticked a lot of those boxes. I don't think I even have to go get diagnosed. I think I'm probably self-diagnosed with ADHD. Okay, Sarah, and then how does I wanna go back to parenting because you light up so much when you talk about your daughter. How does the feeling of not enoughness or relevance, the relationship with your mother, how does that play out in how you parent
Well,
or parented?
I would say I like to say that because of the experience I had with my mother, it showed me what not to do,
Yeah,
but it wasn't like I was like, "Well, I'm not gonna do that, therefore I'm gonna do this." I'm just not wired that way.
yeah,
And I would engage in parenting, and then I would realize in the flow of that, this is different than how my mother did it.
mm,
Um, I never would say that with judgment, like
of
that would
course.
be equivalent of me, sticking my foot out as my mother walked by, like, "I'm not doing the shit you did."
Yeah,
Um, I have had certainly, I've had anger moments, absolutely. In capsulated moments of remembering or talking about it, but in the action of being a parent, it's never really come in to my conscious mind that well, she did it like that, therefore I'm gonna do it like this. It's just the way I am wired to have done it the way in which I've done it. Um, when people ask me about it, I I can still feel it and see it right here. The thing is, okay, so I have the one child. Um, I don't know if this is indicative of having just one child or having 9,000 children. I do not know. Um, she was such a little miracle. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just it's I always believed her. I always believed her. I always was in awe of the fact that she was there herself, not in awe of the fact that I made her, but that she was there and she's interacting with me, and I am charged with the responsibility of the, the perfunctory outer package of keep this child not only surviving but thriving.
Yeah.
And when she began being in preschool on up, it's like when she and I would have conversations, I I never treated her like, "Oh, you're just this little thing. Let me just go, uh-huh, isn't that cute? Uh-huh." I am with her
Mm.
in the same way that I am with anyone that I'm having a conversation with. It's that she was little, she's ageless.
Yeah. I can't wait to meet her because I can't wait to meet the product of that. I mean, to say I always believed her, that is just so profound to me. It makes me question, do I always believe my children? I'd like to think so, but do I make sure that they know that? I mean, that is just such a powerful thing in any relationship to be always believed.
And I believe in this particular situation, I don't know that I can say this of all children in this circumstance. I would say that because Eloise always knew that she was believed and respected and very much valued, we didn't argue and she didn't lie to me. She would
Yeah.
tell me stuff that I did not like or was not cool, but she trusted that I was not going to go, parental on her.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I would very much say, this is really not okay. And here are all the reasons why. I often would start it with, if it was true, I would say, I totally get how it is that you got to that decision.
Mhm.
That does not work.
Yeah.
Here are the consequences of that moving forward. Based on what it is you're trying to do, let's see if we can reroute that to look like this instead of like that, because that's going to get you into trouble every time.
Yeah. What I love about that too, Sarah, is you're not abandoning yourself in it. You're honoring her, but you're also not abandoning yourself and you're
Yes.
bringing your wisdom to her at the same time. So I love that.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to talk about how all of this richness in your background and let's spend a little bit of time in terms of contextually where you were raised.
Yes.
Because I think this plays into very much who you are and your beautiful drawl as well. So
Thank you.
tell us what parts of the planet have been most formative to you and are a part of who you are.
Well, I was born in Houston,
Mhm.
um, and I grew up in the same house until I went off to college. Um, and all of my family, with the exception of some first cousins, a few nieces and nephews, and one of my brothers, they all live here. I mean, they all live in Houston.
Mhm.
Those live here, a
Mhm.
brother.
Mhm.
Um, I am the only one that ever left to go live elsewhere. I lived in California for 25 years.
Mhm.
Um, growing up as a kid, we have this, some people might call it a compound, other people wrongly want to call it a farm. It's not a farm, there's no farming there.
Mhm.
But to give you a context of that, I will say in the late 1800s, post Civil War, my father's ancestors came from, I believe, Georgia
Mhm.
and founded land in East Texas
Mhm.
and built sawmills. And this is the Cliff Notes version. Built a sawmill and it grew and grew and grew in its successfulness. And it was always, of course, the patriarchal side that would be the managing partner.
Mhm.
So it was lumber mills. And so my great grandfather, my grandfather, my father, and then my brother were all the managing partners of W.T. Carter and Brother.
Mm.
And in 1968, it sold to the lumber operation, sold to Champion Paper Company. So the milling town that our family started 100 miles north of Houston ceased to exist. The milling operation was still there, but the church, the school, the hospital, all the mill workers, there was even money that our family it was like a milling town with its own money,
Hmm.
which
Like its own currency?
its own currency. Yes,
What?
which
That's
you can
wild.
find those coins on eBay,
That's
which
wild.
you can't get them because, it's like the moment they're available, they're gone.
Wow.
Um, so in 1968, we sold that to Champion Paper Company, but we kept all of our own private land, and houses had already been built on those lands. And so the house that my father okay, so in the late 1800s, early 1900s, on into mid 1900s, there was what it was a 52-room Victorian mansion that sort of overlooked all of the milling
Oh my
operation.
gosh.
And they lived in Houston, but they used this house to summer and to take care of the operations. And
Mhm.
my grandfather um, was one of he was there were 2 males and then 5 sisters. The 5 sisters were all very liberal, very smart, very politically opinionated, scotch drinking, cigar smoking, card players, that were quite different from what women of that era were.
Wow.
So fast forwarding to when my parents were there, because my father was then the managing partner, my mother and he lived there.
Hmm.
Um, she had her first 2 children in Houston, but they would drive to Houston to have the babies, and then they would drive back to East Texas. And I think it was at the end of those 2 years when my oldest brother was, like, 2 months old, she just put her foot down and said, "Dude, we need our own house. I don't wanna live with your parents
Yeah.
and your aunts."
Mhm.
Totally understandably. So he took the land that was already had been given to him when he was a little boy,
Mhm.
and he built this beautiful mid-century modern house.
No way.
And we have refurbished it. We've also expanded it because our family is so big. And that is where I grew up going for all summers, all holidays, many, many, many weekends until 1968. There was a 4 or 5-year gap because it was sold, as I had mentioned, and then we started going back up there. But as a little kid, it was we rode horses as our transportation. It's like if we didn't even have bicycles. It was all dirt roads, and from a young age, sometimes you would have your horse already caught for you and at the hitching post outside of the kitchen, um, door. But many, many days, no, if you wanna ride or if you're trying to catch up with your cousins, you gotta go out into the pasture and get the horse yourself. So I grew up doing that. I would ride bareback, I would ride Western, I would ride English. N None of it did I crave.
Hmm.
It was transportation to me.
Wow.
And I have 2 the 2 sisters on either end of our sibling group are both just exceptional riders.
Mhm.
My younger sister Oh my god, she's just fantastic. She rides competitively, hunter jumper,
Mhm.
and has had many very stellar horses in the, the arena of hunter jumper and
Mhm.
dressage and, competitive riding, and she goes to, um she goes to many of the places throughout the states, and I think even sometimes in Europe to do her horse shows.
Wow. Okay,
Yes.
so this is all making so much sense now. Okay, the fabric of Sarah Carter is now starting to come together because
Uh-huh.
I see, okay, here is this little girl that was literally riding horses for transportation, but living in beautiful modern design of the time. I'm
Well,
starting to see the influences.
I must say that my mother was quite disappointed, as I understand the story to be, that it was not a beautiful, gracious colonial.
Well, of course, because
So
it was so cutting edge for back
yes, and
then.
so it was mid-century modern, but she decorated the inside as if it were like an old English manor, which sounds ridiculous,
But
but really it worked.
it's giving me Wes Anderson.
And it's like the living room in this place, since our family had the sawmill,
Uh-huh.
everything, the floors are out of pine,
Oh, cool. Oh my
and
gosh, tell me you have pictures.
the walls are out of pine, um, and so, yes, I do have some
Oh my
pictures.
gosh, I wanna
Yes,
see those.
yes.
Okay.
Well,
So
better yet, I think you should come there.
don't invite me because I will
I
go.
will
Oh my
invite you.
gosh, I would love to go. I'm so house horny. I totally wanna see it. Okay, so now I wanna talk about I'm starting to get a sense for what's really formed you. Have we missed anything? Have we left anything unsaid? Because I wanna go where I'm gonna move us next is talk about your art and your work.
I don't think I've sort of briefly touched on, I think, the main scaffoldings of how it is that I land here today. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about your art. You're a beautiful abstract artist. Were you always an abstract artist?
This is the fun story.
Okay.
Yes, always. I've always been that. But what was it that kicked that off is a very fun story. So I go back to always knowing that I was an artist,
Hmm.
always being the kid in school that, did the project or made the drawing that everyone else wanted help with or would look at, or it would be pinned up on the board. Um, and I knew my prowess as an artist. I really, really, really did. And I remember one summer when we were all in Camden, that's the name of the estate house that we have. Um, let's see, how old was I? I think maybe I'm gonna say maybe 8 or 9, um, which would make my oldest brother, I'm gonna say, let's see, maybe I was 10. I'm gonna go with 8. So that means he's like 15 or
Hmm.
16.
Hmm.
And my dad, just for fun, said, "Okay, we're gonna have an art contest." And, I forget what the prize was for whoever it was that the judge, and inside my head, I was like, "Pfft, I got this. Of course, it's gonna be me." And so he sent us all off into totally isolated places of the house to do whatever it is that we thought would be the winning drawing that he was going to pick. I don't even remember what it was that I did other than, I don't know, a farmer and some chickens and a house, and it was really well done, and I was just like, this is so amazing, and of course it's going to be me. And everybody else kind of did something like that. Except my older brother, Tommy, who has always said, "I do not I don't know how to do that is just not what I do." And he is a brilliant genius of a guy, which I can talk about that in a minute. But because he thought that he doesn't do that, but he also is like, "Well, I'm gonna win." He took one of my father's cigarette butts, that was had charcoal on the end of it because 'cause he'd been smoked, And he took this white piece of paper and he took
No.
the ashes of it and he drew this thing.
Wow.
And it wasn't particularly gorgeous or not gorgeous, but conceptually it was like, what? Who does that? My father picked him. My father picked him, and at first I was like, "What? That is terrible. That's not even anything." But then all of a sudden I was going, "Hmm." When Tommy was talking about it, sort of wryly going, "Ha, ha, ha, ha," I thought, "Oh my god, art is everything. Art is anything.
Yeah.
Art doesn't have to be because you were perfect in your draftsmanship of drawing the tree or the flower. It is whatever's coming through. That is when that happened. And
Wow.
ever since then, it's been only abstraction.
So funny because to hear you say those words, the first thought that popped into my mind, Sarah, was life is everything. Life is anything.
Yes. Yes.
Like that's the freedom that you talked about earlier.
Mhm.
So the freedom that you exhibit as an artist, you're also exhibiting in the way in which you live now.
Yes.
Um, okay. So you for those that don't know, you paint beautiful abstract paintings. Your studio is just I could spend all day there. It's so gorgeous. And they're all different scales, although it feels like you paint predominantly in large scale right now. Is that fair to say?
Um, yes, I think when you were there, I had finished mostly all large because that's what I had available. I don't know that it's mostly. I have a lot of works on paper
Mhm.
and works that are 2 feet by 2 feet and smaller.
Yeah.
Um, I do go through phases of where I just absolutely hunger to paint only large.
Okay.
And then other times of where, no, I really want it to be sort of like a jewel and more intimate and small.
Yeah. Well, and what inspires your art? Because you've said before, you said it earlier on this podcast that you're channeling something. How does it come through? How does the inspiration hit? What how do you confront the blank canvas?
Well, I really do believe that the inspiration is always there. Um, it's always available, even if I'm not making art. But when it is time to go in there and do it, it's really more that I turn my attention to that which is always there.
Mhm.
It's not that it gets dialed up and then downloaded. It's
Mhm.
just always there. Um, the the what comes through, it can be difficult to articulate because it defies language in the way that we use language, and I can make and I'm willing to make all sorts of stabs at describing it. Um, it's never gonna fully say what it is because I do think that in that it's coming from it's an essence of the everything and nothing that is all of the universal consciousness, which is just one thing,
Mhm.
which is just here right now, no past, no future, just the right now.
Mhm.
That is an intelligence, that is information, that is a frequency, that is any and everything. And when you open up to it, yes, it can come through you, I guess, maybe in stages or like I'm getting a vision of like, a ship passing through a lock, how it's gotta fill up before it can get to the next one, then
Mhm.
those gates open, and then it fills up till it gets to the next one, and the
Mhm.
gates open. I would say that it's like that. There's this telescoping, and long ago, I gave up the need to be consciously experiencing it in the same language that we think of, like, when you think, like, "I am here now, and I'm going to give you this thing, and we are here, we have arrived." It doesn't happen like that. It happens I know that it's happening when I have been through, a couple of hours, and I realize that I'm not even in the room,
Mm.
and my physicality and my conscious self is just kinda taking care of the perfunctory, dutiful things of gotta drink some water, or the phone rang and you have to answer it, or be sure to hold the paintbrush. But everything else is happening, and it's not that I am necessarily sitting back going, "Hmm, I think I'm gonna do this." Now that does happen, but it's not me saying, "I think I'm gonna do this." It's me going, "Okay, what are we doing next?" And then it comes and I'm like, "Okay." Sometimes I go, "Are you sure?"
When was the last time that happened? Tell us that story.
Well, sometimes when that happens, I will take a picture of what I'm doing,
Mm.
and I will go to the photograph and use markup to do the thing that just came to me to do,
Mhm.
and I would say 9 and a half times out of 10, I'm like, "Oh, right. Yeah, okay, yes, that's right." And
Hilarious.
I go back and do it, and sometimes it's the doing of that that then takes me to the next thing that I wasn't shown initially.
It's like a surrendering.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I wanna talk about 2 paintings in particular. We agreed we weren't gonna get political for a variety of reasons. I think one of which is that we wanna be inclusive, um, on this podcast, but at the same time, for me, inclusivity means different perspectives and sharing different perspectives. And you have 2 paintings, that you painted in response to the election and Kamala losing, and I wanna hear kind of what that process was like and what was coming through you at that moment.
Yes, those 2 particular paintings were not in response to her losing, they were in response to the idea that she could win.
Ah, okay. Very different.
Yes, yes, and where I went with that, it's almost as though that was the springboard for this other thing, which isn't necessarily even political.
Hmm.
So I'll talk about it from that perspective. The way in which our society has organized itself, of at least in our lifetime and historically being more patriarchal in its point of departure for everything, and the problems that ensue, the arguments that happen, the pushing back on that, the duplicitous obfuscation that all of that that you and I are aware of as
Mhm.
humans, but
Mhm.
also as women.
Mhm.
I thought, okay, if this female, it wasn't that it was Kamala necessarily,
Yeah.
if this female gets in, I see that there is a clear opportunity for the breaking of that glass ceiling to actually happen in a practical and common context, to where we as women will not be bumping up against and battling the patriarchy. And when I say the patriarchy, I do not at all mean men.
Yeah.
I mean people that buy into and feed and receive from and are very protective of that system.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not that to combat that, it needs to be a matriarchy. It is really more of a humanitarian collaboration.
Yeah.
So, but the breaking of the glass ceiling, what are all of the things that that could give us? From soup to nuts, it would give us as a society, not just exclusive to women. And I thought, okay, this is going to scare the pants off of a lot of people if that were to happen.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of the resistance
Mhm.
that is just going to make it really, really, really difficult. I all of a sudden had the idea that what if we could create a movement, a culture whereby you create a situation of where those that are scared, that feel they have the most to lose from denouncing the exclusive patriarchy to be more exclusive and open to everything,
Mhm.
um, how are we going to get them to listen? You have to make it where what you're saying is not scary.
Yeah, it's palpable.
Yes. And so, what is that going to look like? But retain its power. You got to start with something that is culturally um, not threatening. What's not threatening? Flowers are not threatening.
Mhm.
So I painted these 8 foot tall, 4 foot wide paintings. And they are, when you just look at them, they're just, you can see that they're still very abstract, but you can see they are flowers.
Mhm.
And you can get lost in them. You can marvel at how they were made. You can marvel at their beauty. You can marvel at their transparency and their opacity and the way in which they twist and they turn. And you can get lost in the aesthetic of it and never really notice what you're standing in front of that is packed with the frequency of what came through. It is embedded in there.
Yeah.
And then if you start feeling that and you start noticing like the stems,
Mhm.
they're it's like a very old wisteria bush.
Mhm.
The wisteria blooms are still amazing, but look at the where the roots are.
Yeah.
It's not gorgeous
It's
anymore. It's
gnarled. It's
gnarly.
yeah.
It's badass. It has taken all of, the plight and the bugs and the droughts and the whatever, and
Mhm.
it is like this old crone that is wise and knows it all. So the stalks and the stems are that. The title of the piece is the first one made was Flowers for Women, and then the second one is More Flowers for Women. And so the idea is that if all you can handle is to look at how marvelously beautiful they are, because they are, that's totally cool. If you are pulled into just looking at them because they're pretty, you're still sitting in front of that powerful force that was embedded in the paint by the team.
The team behind you.
Yes.
Okay. Um, Hearing you talk about it, it's so interesting. I I'm going to share my perspective. I don't want to put this on you, but I think for me, um, I can very much relate to what you're talking about in terms of the hope around what would it look like to have a little bit more feminine energy in leadership in this world. And my father said something to me several years ago, and he said to me, "Oh, Carla, if you were a man, you'd be a CEO by now."
Mhm.
And he said, and I didn't think anything of it. And he said, "We've messed up this world enough. It's your turn." And it just made me think about what would it look like from not even a gender standpoint, but from an energy standpoint
Mhm.
for us to balance the masculine with the feminine, to your point.
Yes.
And regardless of your political affiliation, how cool would it be to see a woman in power? And what could that look like?
Yes, it's not politically, affiliated with just women.
Yeah. What would
That
it
just happens to be how it was showing up now.
Yeah. But what would it look like to have a little bit of more maternal, loving energy, in leadership? That's something that I think about a lot.
Well, I think it very well could be coming,
Yeah.
and that could be all part of what you and I were chatting about when I first arrived. Um, I do look at the whole situation of the discord that is going on, with an ethereal idea of the glass is half full.
Mm.
I think it's bringing something. And I think the crazier it gets, it's because something that felt secure before in its duplicitous nature now doesn't, must be because something's threatening it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's going on? So this is something you and I bonded on our very first conversation, and which is the kind of woo woo, for lack of a better way of putting it, side of both of us, the spiritual side of both of us, Where did that come from for you, Sarah? Has it always been there?
Literally has always been there.
Huh.
Yes, and, I do believe that in a way that from a genetic DNA standpoint, while I believe that everyone is hardwired to have intuitive knowing,
Mhm.
um, I I do think that it kind of can run in families in terms of how it shows up, or how literal it shows up, and there are ways in which it can show up in someone and they can completely ignore it or denounce it and just not even develop it. There's
Mhm.
others that do. Um, it has been developed in to a degree, I would say, in my family. Um, Not every single one of them. And if they listen to this podcast, they're gonna, I'm not gonna name any names or give anything that is so specific as to scare them off, but I'll just keep it to myself in terms of talking about myself. And that is, I've always known. I've always known. I didn't know that that's what I knew because to me, that's just what that was. I do remember quite specifically as a kid. Um, I don't know, when I was anxious or worried or feeling insecure, or maybe siblings were arguing or whatever it would be that needed whatever anxiety needed to be calmed. I can remember going outside, and this is at our place in East Texas, and looking up at the stars while listening to the cicadas
The best sound ever.
and marveling at that, which would take me to the massive stars that were visible, which would take me to the understanding that me as an individual human being, I am tiny. This discord or argument I just had with my brother or sister or being disturbed because I saw them arguing, it's nothing. It's nothing. And I it wasn't that I was belittling those things. It was that those were real and I felt the way I felt. But in the context of everything, it's like it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And so as I look back on it, those were my literal experiences with the intuitive nature
Yeah.
of humans and sentient beings.
And do you feel comfortable talking about some of your capabilities? Because you have very strong intuitive capabilities. Would you call it clairvoyance or how would you refer to it?
Um, there are parts of it that are quite honed. There are other parts that are not at all.
Mhm.
So I think rather than, I mean, I would call myself unofficially psychic, of
Okay.
course. I think
We all
everyone
are.
is,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, but because that is such a loaded thing to claim or to be, I more go with the softer ideas of that I'm intuitive or that I'm an empath.
Mhm.
Because when one is an empath, they're empathic. They and people can be empathic without it necessarily being thought of as being psychic. That's not true, but people think of it that way.
Yeah.
So I do know things. I don't always know how I know them,
Mhm.
whereas other people might just have this literal tape in front of them knowing things. As in the last couple of years, I'm really getting these downloads that are
Mm.
showing me how it is that what I've always done, here's how that is. It's I know things that like if someone that I care about, I'm having a private conversation with them, is in trouble or worried, and they're asking for my help or my thoughts or my reflections, I just get information. I've never thought of it really as it's just like, well, this is what I think to tell you. But I've witnessed in the last many years that where am I getting that information? Well, I get it from this screen that comes up in front of me, and it's like a mural.
Huh.
And I'm just sort of my conscious mind is just reading the mural. And like, well, there's a man and there's a wife and there's a farmer and they're holding the scythe. And then over here's their cow. And then over here, they're taking it to the market. So I'm reading a mural that is in front of me, is one of the predominant ways in which I get that information. Um, Here's one that happened just the other day.
Oh, good.
I'm not going to tell you who or what it was about, but I had given someone some information that had come to me through another healer intuitive person, where an ancestor showed up
Mhm.
and said, "Okay, so since I know that you pass these messages along, I need you to say this and this to this other person."
Hmm.
And so I was like, "Okay." And so I did, and the person that the message was meant for was like, "Oh my oh my god, okay." Not in disbelief that it happened, but just like,
Just stunned.
this is like this is so far away from the paradigm that I use to assess or to decide or whatever. And but they understood. They said, "But wow, it's a lot to take in because what you just said is correct."
Hmm.
And it was not coming from me. It was coming from an ancestor that was coming to me.
Wow.
Um, I had no idea what the ancestor was talking about. Not one clue.
Hmm.
I still don't know, but the person I told sure knew.
Wow.
Um, and then later on, several hours later, this particular person contacted me and said, "I need to not, I need to take a break on you giving me that type of information."
Whoa.
And I immediately knew it wasn't because they were like, "That's bullshit. We're not, like, "Pfft, go away." It was more like, "Oh crap. Okay. This is completely out of the box for how it is that I maneuver through the world and the paradigm that is, normal, that I'm comfortable in." And it's not what I took it as, it's not that I don't believe you, it's that I do believe
Yeah,
you.
it's too intense to
And I
handle.
don't know where to put this and not knock myself off of balance at a time when I need to be on balance.
Yeah.
That's the way I took it. And I said, "Oh my gosh, no problem. Totally understand." I said, "This stuff is ordinary to me in its extraordinary nature. It's ordinary to me it's like for decades I have been receiving this."
Yeah.
Um, and so I was telling one of my um, healer people that I consult with about this exchange. And as I'm telling the person, so this is where I'm giving you an example. As I'm describing to the person, the he said, she said part of this, I got this screen in front of me. And the screen was this particular person that I was giving the information to, let's say on this screen, they are a badass expert roller skater. This is what came to me. They have for years have known how to roller skate to the point of where they really know how to do dangerous things, take chances, do shit in the rink that they've never done before because they know their skill so well that they know that the likelihood that it's going to be successful is spot on. And so they are expert at taking risks that are going to 9 times out of 10 just exponentially give what they're after.
Mhm.
They're used to doing this. This is what they've always done. Now comes this information that I've given, and all of a sudden they feel, and this is what I'm still telling my healer person. I said, I do believe this particular person who is an expert roller skater who roller skates in this way, this information that I've given him is the equivalent of him doing this roller skating, but someone has given him psilocybin mushrooms. It's like they now do not feel the confidence to do the risky stuff that they know they've got the talent to do, and they do it all the time. And so now there is this insecurity, and are the stakes all of a sudden are very high. I don't know where to place this. I don't know how to do this, even though I know how to do this, don't know how to do it in this context. So I got to, because it's really important right now that I do this, I got to shut that down.
Fascinating.
And I totally got
Of
that.
course. That's
Yes.
fascinating.
And then it doubles. So as I was describing this, is when I said to my psychic person, um, I said, "Oh my God, this is me. This is the psychic screen coming to me."
Mhm.
And they said, "Yeah, it is." And I said, "Oh my God, this is exactly what has come to me for decades." And so then the next day I had this other appointment with my cranial sacral practitioner who is also quite psychic. And I was telling her this story. And she's listening, going like this, and I'm done with the story, and she says, "Yep, that's exactly what I was getting. You know, your guides are saying, yep, that's exactly correct." 20 minutes later, she says, "Do you remember 8 months ago when you told me about your family friend that passed away, and he came in, and the two of you kind of had some ongoing jokes about childhood, and he made a joke and you laughed." And I said, "Yeah, I do remember that." She goes, "Well, he wants you to know right now," he's such a joker. "He wants you to know right now it was him that fed you that image of the roller skating and the psilocybin mushrooms." And I was like, yes. So it's like I'm totally plugged in, as we
Wow.
all are. You just have to pay attention.
Yeah. As you're talking, we could spend a whole podcast on this because I'm starting to realize some of these things, some of the downloads that I've gotten and interactions with people when I'm not with them,
Mhm.
that have been super interesting that are starting to happen to me. Okay, Sarah. So given how plugged in you are into our world, and I mean, you're so beautifully tapped in and you're so authentic. What's your hope for the world right now, given where we are?
Ah.
What's the path forward?
Well, I realize that there's a certain trajectory of the human experience that is the way it is by design, even though we might describe it as being right, wrong, good, bad. Um, I don't necessarily believe that will ever change.
Mm,
But what I do think that we as ascended souls, I am hoping for the star seeds that are in us to allow us to understand in our humanness when we're right turn, wrong turn, stuck in the duality, for us to at least know that that has purpose,
mm,
as opposed to it making us feel competitive and greedy and scared and everything being a zero sum game.
mhm.
That if you have something, that means I have nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what we are here to try to get to, and it's not for humanity necessarily. It'd be great for us. I am a human being. But I think it's the curriculum for our soul
Mhm.
to take that learning, that experience of learning that, and everything else that comes along with having learned that, the process of learning that, to the next thing, whatever that next thing is that we will end up being.
Yeah. I think I think you're spot on. And my hope for it is that we accept each other in it
Yes.
and all of its messiness.
Yes.
And I I just want to say thank you. You beautiful, brilliant, soulful woman.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you.
I feel so lucky to call you a friend and to continue to get to know you. And I'm coming to your house. I want to
Yes,
see it.
you are invited.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited by that. But thank you for giving us time today, Sarah, and sharing your wisdom with us and your story. And I think you're going to inspire a lot of people with this one.
Well, thank you so much for the interest and your the energy that you've created here. It is so
Mm.
conducive to anybody sitting down and just spilling the tea. And I trust you and I trust this
Mhm.
process, and I am so honored that you would think of me to do this.
Well, thank you for that. I'm grateful. All right, Sarah.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Yes.
All right. Thank y'all for listening today. If you're so inclined, please follow, subscribe, download, share, all of the things so that we can keep going. We appreciate your support so much. If you're interested in learning more, go to thecoeffect.co.